This is the fourth part in the Meaningful Interviews series with Rabbi Avraham Shmuel Levine, Harav Levine, who lives today in Tel Aviv. He was formerly the secretary to the Agudas HaRabbonim with Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, Rabbi Simcha Elberg, and in addition to that, he had a connection and he learned and was friendly with Harav Hagoin, Rabbi Yosef Eliyahu Henkin. This is the fourth part, so please, Rabbi Levine, please continue with whatever you would like to say.
And first of all, I'd like to just add, or maybe correct, something that I said in the first interview, Bekesher to Yerushalayim and London. I said that my grandfather sent my father to Lubavitch saying that although I'm not sure you'll be in London, but I know you'll be in Yerushalayim. And people could interpret this as London is more important than being in Yerushalayim. I'd just like to add, if you take a look at the Gemara Shabbos Lamed Aleph on the Beis, the Gemara over there comes to Maskana that Yerushalayim is more important than being in London. That's
Okay.
number one.
Thank you.
Number two, I want to add also to when I spoke about my grandfather and his shaykh is, well, I don't know if I mentioned his shaykh Lubavitch, but I would like to add.
Well, you said your grandfather did not come from a Chabad home.
Right.
And in fact, he learned in Vlozhin.
Right.
So he was a Litvisher.
Right. But I want to prove how even a Litvisher,
Right.
who doesn't hold of Lubavitch,
Right.
but from the Rebbe, as a young boy, as a young bocher, he held tremendously.
Our Rebbe.
Yes, and this is with the following story.
So he came to America.
No.
But
No.
he
My
knew the
grandfather,
Rebbe?
My grandfather?
Yeah.
No, I'm going to.
Okay, let me hear.
Like I said, my grandfather was a Rav in 3 different cities.
In Russia.
Yes. And one of those was Mariupol, which was under the jurisdiction of Reb Levine. Reb Levine was the chief rabbi of
Dr. Stanislav.
and he was in charge of the cities surrounding
Around, and Mariupol was one of them.
Huh?
Mariupol,
Yes.
which has been bombed,
Yes.
has been in the news a lot.
Yes. So my grandfather was very friendly with Reb Levi because from time to time he would come to Reb Levi's house to discuss shilas and all kinds of communal affairs. And Reb Levi would also, when he would visit the surrounding areas which he was under his jurisdiction, he would also come to my grandfather's house.
Sure, right.
Yeah, okay. So my father told me that once there was a bris in the shul of my grandfather, which Reb Levi happened to be there, and the Bala bris was Mechabed, the Rav of the shul, my grandfather, to be Sandakois.
Yeah, he honored him with Sandakois.
Yes, and he rejected.
He's the rabbi of the shul.
Yes, and and we know the schus of being a Sandik.
Yes.
He rejected it. He said, Reb Leivik is here, you should honor Reb Leivik.
Wow.
That's number one. Number two, my father told me that one time when my grandfather came back from a visit to Reb Leivik's house, he said, I think we should, my father had a sister, Leah, and he came back from Reb Leivik's house and he said, I think we should think about Reb Leivik's chor for Leah.
The Rebbe.
Yes,
Yeah.
but that shows you that if he said so, that means he probably spoke with him and learning. And he saw what kind of
What kind of going he was, right.
it was.
That's a beautiful thing.
That's what
But it never ended up happening. Okay, so now let's go back to Rabbi Henkin.
Yes.
So tell me about, in general, about Rabbi Henkin's, approach. I remember you telling me that even when he was blind, he had a thing about not making Kiddush, Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
Yes, can you tell us about that, please?
Yes. Like I said, I learned with Rav Henkin for 3 years, from
10 to 12 every day.
Yes.
Gemara.
Yeah, Gemara. It depended on his. He was already shvach, if he could learn Gemara something deep, I would learn
Be'iyun.
Be'iyun.
Oh, not just Gemara and Rashi.
Right. But if I see that he was Shvach, then we would learn Ein Yankov.
Uh-huh. The stories of the Gemara.
Yeah. So, so one time when I came in to learn with him.
This was at his house.
Yes.
Where he lived in the Lower East Side,
Yes.
right? In one of the
on the projects on Grand Street.
Grand Street.
I think it was 385 Grand Street.
Okay.
And I walk in and he says, "Listen, I want to write a mimer in Apardus. Apardus is a rabbinical journal.
Yes.
It's edited by Rabbi Elberg.
Yes.
All the rabbis would
would
send in their shiurim, their
right, the
kipurim.
chidushim and their things. Yeah.
So he says, I want to write in.
I want to write a
katava,
an article. I mean,
I'll dictate to you, and you write it and give it over to Rabbi Elberg. And he starts off like this. Shamati sheyesh minug ra b'yeshivas she'echlim lefnei tkiyas demiyushev. Shezeh mitzvah deraisa. I don't remember exactly the words. I mean, you can take a look in Apardus. It's over there.
but translated in English.
Okay. And he says like this, that since the tkiyas demiyushev before Musaf,
but you didn't say no. You have to touch up. He heard Shemaiti.
Okay, I thought you were going to translate.
He heard that people in yeshivas, the bnei yeshivas.
There's a bad custom.
A bad custom. He wrote minigra. He wrote that.
Yes.
It's a bad custom to eat before the blowing of the shofar called Kiyas Miyushav, the obligatory Kiyos
Right.
on Rosh Hashanah.
Right. And he says that the reason that they do, and this is a mitzvah d'oraisa.
It's a biblical mitzvah.
And he says that since the reason that is given for this, why they eat, is because you're not supposed to fast on a Yom Tov, and the tefillah is very long. Rosh Hashanah, therefore they make Kiddush and they eat.
And then they hear the shofar.
Right. So, but since it's a mitzvah d'oraisa, you're not supposed to eat before mitzvah d'oraisa. Maybe timid ba'alma mutter, but not to make the whole thing Kiddush and unless.
Right, so they just take a little bit because you're not supposed to stuff yourself and have a full meal.
Right. So he says that if you have to make Kiddush and you feel you have to eat, it's better that you eat after the tkiyas, the tkiyas that they blow in
Musaf, while you're standing,
right.
Musaf.
You're going to say that you're not allowed to speak out after the tkiyas, the miyushav. So he says it's better to speak out after a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, since the tkiyas is the midrabbanan. So it's better to
right than to do it before a mitzvah d'oraisa.
Okay. So I wrote that and I sent it to Rabbi Elberg. 2 weeks later, a letter comes to Rabbi Henkin. It said confidential, and it's from Rabbi Mordechai Gifter in Tels. And
The Rosh Yeshiva of the Tels Yeshiva in Cleveland.
Yeah, and since I served as the eyes of Rabbi Henkin, since he was semi-blind, and I would read everything that would come to him, I would read and I would give it over to him.
Right.
So I opened up the letter, and he says there it was, I'm not going to go into it, I don't remember all the exact words, but what I do remember, he says like this, you'll translate.
Yeah. I was astonished how your pen expressed itself, the Honorable Gaon, the genius of Torah.
He slanders the yeshivas. Of course, I'm sure you know that all the Gaonim and all the yeshivas, they eat before Tkiyas. And Kotler did so, and he mentioned the whole
list of Rosh Yeshivas.
Rosh Yeshivas that do so. And I was surprised, and I was shocked that you said so. And I read this to it bothered him extremely.
It bothered Rabbi Henkin.
Yeah, he was emotionally distressed with this. And he it was Pegea of him. He felt it was Pegea of him very much. And I think that if I would have
Like it insulted him.
Yeah, I think if I would have known how he would have reacted,
You would have not read it to him.
Maybe I wouldn't have read
Because it was too, at his age and his condition, it was too stressful.
Right, exactly. But he says to me, write it back. Ein Gebore, I think, Hulin Davov or Zainom at base, where there was a discussion about two Tanoim that they argued about a certain issue. And at one point, the Tan, I think Reb Nosson, in the Hulin over there, it says that Reb Nosson says, Mokim in Nichulim and Hashemayim Nizgadaboy. I have priority. They left me
place.
They gave me the authority to issue this psak over you.
Right.
And give it back to him. So I wrote it back to him. It was very short.
Right. I mean, basically, he's telling him that I'm a posik and I have a right to make.
I know what you do. So,
and that you guys are just Rosh Hashivas.
Yeah. So he says to me. So I wrote it back. So I wrote it back and I sent him back this letter.
To Rabbi Gifter.
Rabbi Gifter. 2 weeks later, another
confidential letter comes.
This was so confidential. It was 6 pages, though. The first one was a page and a half. This was 6 pages. And he says, he apologized. He says, I didn't chas v'sholem mean to
insult you, right.
To insult you, chas v'chalila. I just wanted to take up and for and to defend those who do so.
Right.
And then he says that I went into Pilpul Shmuel with Rabbi Stein. Rabbi Chaim Stein there was a mashgiach, I think.
Yeah. In Telz.
In Telz. And we spoke, and he says over this halachic thing what he said. Okay.
So 1 second. From his 6-page letter, it's gehalten by sich that they're right.
But yeah, okay, yeah. But ever since then, I think if you take a look in the Ezras Torah Luchis, the
calendars of the Ezras Torah they give out.
Henkin was a Menayel of Ezras Torah. You'll see Rabbi Margolin, who edited
the calendar.
He puts in, when he speaks about Rosh Hashanah and Kiyas, what you're supposed to do, he puts in parentheses that Rav Henkin holds you shouldn't eat before the Kiyas. Okay. But the interesting part is this. I asked him, I myself thought to myself, he mentioned here a list of
good, yeah.
Kotler, this one, and this
yeah.
one. So I was wondering, wait, they didn't know this halacha that you're saying?
This Gemara.
Yeah. So I asked him, I said, we mentioned all these. At first, he thought that I was on their side because I was defending him. So he knew it was on Lubavitch. So he says, Gifit was Lubavitch. What's the custom of Lubavitch? So I said to him, Lubavitch, Mount Charashmei, who would think about eating before the kiss?
Right.
So he was very happy. And then he says to me like this, you asked me about the Rabbi Kotler. Let me tell you this. There was a Rav here, Rabbi Goldberg, I think. So Rabbi Goldberg here on the east side.
In the east side, there was a Rav Rabbi Goldberg, a rabbi.
Yeah. And he once came to me and he asked me a shaila if they're chazonim that are marich with tefillah in the chazor sashatz.
If they spend a lot of time in the repetition of the Shmoneh Esrei, the Amidah.
Is it considered a hefsek or not? So I said it's a hefsek. 2 weeks later, he comes back to me and he says he was in Lakewood for a weekend. He was with Rabbi Aaron Kotler. He discussed this with Rabbi Aaron Kotler. Rabbi Aaron Kotler said it's not a hefsek. So I told him that Rav Henkin says it's a hefsek. So Aaron Kotler says to me, if Rav Henkin says it's a hefsek, then I also. Butler dieted what Rav Henkin says. So he says to me like this. Rabbi Aaron Kotler is actually given a goin in Pilto. Aber Tzaloche, die schickt zu mir.
He knows he was great in Pilpul and Gemara, but in Halacha, he would side with my opinion.
And he added, if Rabbi Aaron Kotler would know that I asked to eat before Tkiyas,
he would agree.
He would agree, and they wouldn't eat. They wouldn't. And
they would stop that.
Stop that. Yeah,
that's a very interesting story.
That's one story.
So Ezra's Torah started in the early 1900s, right?
Ezra's Torah started in the same year that the Rebbe was born, 1902.
Yeah.
and it was founded by the Agudas Rabbanim at that time.
Yes.
The Agudas Rabbanim, and originally it was founded only for Talmidei Chachamim who sat and learned the whole day, didn't have a source of parnosa,
income.
So they
raised money, and they said.
So they established Ezras Torah. Now, Ezras Torah is like a baby of Agudas Rabbanim. So wherever Agudas Rabbanim went, Ezras Torah went along with him. So, for instance, when Agudas Rabbanim moved to the United States and was on East Broadway at first, not on East Broadway, on Broadway. Before it came to East Broadway, it was on Broadway. Ezras Torah had a room there too. Mm-hmm. When it came to East Broadway, they had on the east side, they had a room. It was Ezras Torah was upstairs, and then someone was downstairs. Mm-hmm.
So it was like a subordinate organization of Agudas Rabbanim.
Yeah.
Did its branch?
Yeah.
Did its policy as far as funding others besides Torah scholars did change?
Yes.
In what way?
Yes. In what way? Anybody that came and asked for
anyone that came, even if he wasn't a Talmud Chacham.
Right. As long as he had hamlotza.
He had a approbation, a letter of recommendation.
Yes.
In other words, a regular person in the Frum community.
Yes, who needs for a scholar, let's say.
Yeah.
He would come to Ezras Torah and with hamlotza, and then there would be a meeting between the board, how much they give him, if they give him b'chlal, how much they give him, and then I would have to implement the decision. I made the checks.
And who was on the board?
Well, Rabbi, when I didn't remember before that, but when I was there, the president was Rabbi Naftali Tzvi, who was the Einikel of the Netziv.
Yes. And he was from Camden, New Jersey.
Camden, New Jersey was the Rabbi.
He was a real Litvisher.
Yeah.
Right.
And then his son-in-law took over, Rabbi Gettinger. Gettinger.
And I think one of them in North Carolina today still officially runs it.
I don't know.
I spoke to him.
Could be, yeah. Then they had Rabbi Margolin was the Menayel. There were two Menayelim there, Rabbi Margolin and Rabbi Moshe Rosinski, who was in the Vardika.
And the Vardika, Rosinski.
Yeah.
And Rav Henkin was.
Well, he was the Menayel. He was the,
So he was the final say. Is that right?
The final say, yes.
Right.
Yes.
So was it his decision to open it up to other people?
Could be, I think so. Yeah. Because when I came, it was already open to other people. I don't know what happened before.
Now let me ask you: did you observe? Were also Hasidic Rabbanim that benefited from this organization?
Definitely.
This wasn't just for Litvish Rabbanim.
Yes, definitely. It's like I said, everybody.
Anybody? Rabbis also? Rabbis?
Yes.
So you had.
I'm not going to say names.
Yeah.
But mamish the big names.
And what was the average Nesina? What was the average amount that they gave? $1,000? $5,000?
No, I think $100.
$100. In those days, that was
You see, let me tell you something interesting. A lot of, most of the bakoshas, the requests from Israel, came from Nosa Skala and for a dira. Because in Eretz Yisrael, there's this...
for apartments,
apartments. And that was the main request. So one time, the board decided, why do we have to always give them $100? Let's establish as a Torah there.
Oh.
And that's the way as the Shkuna as a Torah in Yerushalayim.
Oh.
Yes.
That's the Shkuna, the neighborhood, Ezras Torah.
Yes. And then they would give out diras for almost half price.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And the first binyan that was erected was
the first building was
Knesset on the name of Henkin.
Yeah?
There's a Henkin shul here.
Uh-huh.
That was I was part of those.
One more question about Henkin. How many children did he have?
3, I know for sure. I think 4.
Were any of them, even close to his personality and knowledge?
Well, they didn't pursue Torah life like
him.
Henkin. They were, I think, moderate Orthodox, Dati Leumi.
Yeah, he had a son who was a
Yeah, his
professor.
son, yes, yes.
Where? Here in Jerusalem?
I no, no. But here, his grandchild, Rabbi Yehuda Henkin,
Yeah.
He's the one that you could say succeeded his.
Right. But his father was the professor?
I think so.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure. But it was when he made Aliyah, that's when I took over. I started learning with Rav
Uh-huh. When Yehuda.
Yehuda used to learn with Rav Henkin.
I understand.
And then he made Aliyah, and he needed somebody to be with Rav Henkin.
Okay.
And we were very, very close.
Hmm. Even here, while in the country, when you came here,
No, I said with Rav Henkin. With Rav Henkin, I was
you were very, very close with
very
him.
close, a very
Yeah.
warm relationship.
When did his wife pass away? Many years
Yeah,
before?
Before I came.
Uh-huh. Okay.